Hey, I'm Nick.
And I'm Allie.
And this is But Have You Tried from the David A. Howe Public Library. Now, Allie, would you say that you and I are an odd couple on this podcast?
Probably.
Boo, 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 boo. All right, well, today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things, and that is The Odd Couple. Going into this, did you have much awareness of The Odd Couple, any of the versions of The Odd Couple?
I had seen The Odd Couple play. I think specifically the one that you were in.
Okay. So in your
And that
mind, The
was
Odd
it.
Couple is just a play starring me as Oscar
Yes.
Madison.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All right.
I feel like I knew a couple other people in that play. So
Okay.
in my mind, I'm like, well, that's just
All right.
who
So
those people are.
you've seen it on stage, and that was it. That was everything.
And I remember there was one Gilmore Girls episode, which I didn't even watch all that much Gilmore Girls, to be
Okay.
honest, where Rory and Lorelai are arguing and they call each other Felix and Oscar. And I was like, that's kind of a niche reference. But I now realize that it's less of a niche reference
very
when
iconic,
there's like shows and not just like one play.
Speaking of Gilmore Girls, a little bit of a Gilmore Girls connection in the show that we're going to be talking about today. Lauren Graham plays Oscar's ex-wife, Gabby.
That's true.
So, okay, well, let's do it. Hit me with some facts about all things The Odd Couple.
Okay, I've got some facts.
Okay.
The original play, which again was my reference point for The Odd Couple,
right,
by Neil Simon, was released in 1965, and which I didn't realize until I was researching for this episode, they made a female version in 1985.
Yeah, they did.
That's kind of fun.
Actually, some people that I've worked with are doing the female version of The Odd Couple in Olean, New York, which is nearby us, from April 25th through 28th. In the year 2024, so you can go and check that out. But yeah, it is. It's a fun gender swapped kind of version. Yeah.
And I always love a good gender swapping. Like sometimes it can be just like, all right, but I feel like a lot of the time it can be fun.
Yeah.
And then you have versions that both men and women can do.
Because you were a big fan of that Life and Death Twilight gender swap, right?
Yes.
You were staying up at night reading that with a flashlight in your bed. Don't lie.
With the towels
you loved it
in the door crack.
Yeah, right.
To disguise my activities. Okay. There's some like differing.
Wait, before we move on from the play, there is an update to the play, and I use the word update very loosely because in the early 2000s, Neil Simon rewrote The Odd Couple as Oscar and Felix, and its intention was to be an update of the show. And I don't want to be on record talking smack about the late great Neil Simon, but it's terrible. It's really, really bad.
Oh no!
What
is it?
I don't know. Felix is like, oh, did my wife email me? And just like, it's very, it is. It feels like a very old man trying to write something hip in 2002.
Well, because
I
feel like the 2015 show, which is what we're going to talk about more in a few minutes here. It's like up to date and it feels right and fine.
Yeah.
But the idea of like going to see a stage play and then being like, oh, my email.
It's really bad.
Feels a little.
It's really bad. So while the original and the female version definitely hold up, Oscar and Felix is best left forgotten. But anyway, go on. You were telling me about other versions.
A solid yikes. Okay. Another thing, the original play, there's some like differing opinions as to where the idea came from.
Sure.
One is that Neil Simon's brother Danny, after his divorce, was living with this like agent named Roy Gerber.
Okay.
And that they kind of had a little bit of an odd couple dynamic going on with like they tried to have people over for dinner and it didn't go well, and then they like had a whole conversation about it afterward. And anyway, but there's also a theory that was inspired by Mel Brooks living with Speed Vogel, which something I think is interesting about both of these theories is that Speed and Roy are both names of characters in the play, right?
They are.
So I feel like probably both of these were in fact
bit.
Inspirations.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So that was a fun nugget.
I think you're right. The film is great, like I think it's 1968 with Walter Matthau. Walter Matthau, who originated the role of Oscar in the play, but it's Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon takes over for Art Carney as Felix. I mean, they're great together. Lemmon and Matthau have been in, I think they did 8 movies together over the course of, 30, 40 years. Always have great chemistry, and it's really good in that. They did a sequel movie 30 years later.
Oh, wow.
With them reprising their roles. It doesn't have the same feel as the original. It feels a little bit more like Grumpy Old Men or some of their later stuff, but still works, still fun, still better than the Neil Simon, Oscar and Felix play.
And is the movie like pretty much, is it like a filming of the play kind of an experience, or is it is it a little more remixed?
It's pretty close. The major differences would be that the play, all the action of the play takes place in the apartment. And the movie, they're at the diners, they're at the ball game, they're out around town.
That makes sense.
But that's the main difference.
Since you can do that in a movie.
You can. You might as well.
Right. You gotta make use of that.
Yep. So I do recommend the movies. They're fun.
Okay. So after the success of the movie, they made a show in the 70s, which ran from September 24, 1970 to March 7, 1975. So I feel like that's a pretty good run.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This was a huge hit of a show.
That makes sense. And this was starring Tony Randall as Felix and Jack Klugman as Oscar.
Klugman, yeah.
Klugman?
Yeah, Jack Klugman. Jack Klugman was famous for the show Quincy, which feels like the kind of show that the Stevick family would have watched around an old school TV set.
That feels like a really familiar name, but we did not watch it.
He plays a medical examiner who's always solving crimes.
Oh, okay. So, that sounds fun. But does it have like gross medicine stuff in it?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because that is like
that's a turnoff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't do it.
Tony Randall, he was sort of the best friend in all the Rock Hudson, Doris Day movies. He's known for that. He's a great. I mean, that's the great cast, but Tony Randall as Felix is pretty hard to top, though. I feel Thomas Lennon is right up there. And I know the show had some cast members in common with the movie. Like, I think the Pigeon Sisters in the movie are the same in the show. And there's a few crossovers like that. Yeah.
Okay. And so finally, The Odd Couple that I have been watching.
Yes.
Which came out in 2015, February 2015 to January of 2017.
Yeah.
And this is apparently the 6th screen production based on the play.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to me. That's so many.
We've got the movie, we've got the 70s show, and then we have the cartoon, The Oddball Couple, which I've never seen like a second of.
I've seen a few seconds of it.
Okay, how do you feel about it?
It's truly absurd, and that is wonderful.
You liked it. Okay. They're a dog and a cat, right?
They're a dog and a cat, and they drive around in this car that like one side is like looks like a car, like it's clean.
Okay.
And, like the... It's car shaped, and the other side, the like windshield is like jagged, and there's like dirt all over. And I think that's funny.
Yeah. Okay, so we had that, and then in the 80s we had the new Odd Couple, which was Ron Glass, who I knew from Firefly, and let's see who is.
Wait, who does he play in Firefly?
He's Shepherd Book.
Okay.
Yeah, plays Felix in that.
Okay.
So that was pretty decent, but it didn't go for very long. I think it looks like it's 18 episodes, and I read that it was started during a writer's strike, and so they used a lot of the scripts from the Jack Klugman, Tony Randall show.
That makes sense.
And by the time they could sort of put their own spin on it, people were like, yeah, we've seen this already.
Yeah,
and
I could
didn't
see
last.
that. That would be hard.
So yeah, that was fun, and then we had the sequel movie, and then here we are in 2015 with Matthew Perry and Thomas Lennon. And I'd read that Matthew Perry was like a huge Odd Couple fan and tried to get this off the ground like several times. And finally it happened here in 2015.
Good for him.
Yeah.
We love to see that. Yes. So also something I discovered is that Matthew Perry and Thomas Lennon both were in the movie 17 again.
Yeah.
Which when Matthew Perry came out, I was like, wait, I recognize it. Like what? And so I like did my, like IMDbing as I'm watching it. And I was like, oh, okay, of course. But I still don't remember Thomas Lennon being in that show at all. Like I don't remember. Yeah. Who he is in the movie.
He's like the friend. He's like the
Is
goofy.
he an important character?
Yeah. It's a big role.
Maybe it's been too long since
17
I've seen
again
this
is like a body swap. Matthew Perry's
Yeah.
character ends up in the body of his younger
Yeah.
self, who's played by Zac Efron.
Right.
Yeah, that's a fun movie.
Yeah, and then he has an existential crisis.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it is fun, and Zac Efron does a really good Matthew Perry impression throughout that whole movie, which I always enjoy watching.
Yes. It's always fun when you kind of forget that an actor is not like actually body swapped, that they're just acting,
Yeah, you love to see it. Thomas Lennon also did a bit part in Friends. Did you watch Friends at all? Have you seen any of Friends?
No. Okay. I've seen memes from Friends.
Sure. Well, there's a whole thing where they're at a casino and Joey finds this guy and decides that they are hand twins, that their hands look identical, and they think there's like money to be made in this. Thomas Lennon plays Joey's hand twin.
Okay.
And in the Friends reunion special that HBO did a few years back, Thomas Lennon shows up again. And it's fun because they also, he has a moment with Matthew Perry where they're kind of like, hey, the Odd Couple, which I was excited to see. Thomas Lennon's most famous for Reno 911, which I have never seen. So I don't know. He also writes a series of, I want to say like J-level books as well, which I got to read.
That intrigues me.
Yeah. Because I think he's great. Anytime he shows up, I think he's great. He's Mitzelplick and Supergirl. And anytime Thomas Lennon shows up in something, I'm happy. So yeah, he writes the Ronan Boyle series. If you've ever come across that,
I don't think I
think
have,
we
but
do
now
have
I
in
am
our
curious
collection.
about this.
Okay, so I was trying to remember like how I stumbled on this show, and I think it's just because I love Neil Simon and I love The Odd Couple, and I heard there was a new show out, and I watched it.
That makes sense.
And I did rewatch the first season for this episode, and I haven't. It hasn't been that long since I watched it. I think the last time that I really watched it in earnest was when I went to the ALA conference in Seattle, and I watched a bunch of it, like on the plane rides around. I just downloaded it and watched it because it's such a comfort show for me. I never tire of going back to it. But anyway, tell me a little bit about watching it.
Well, I wasn't sure exactly what to expect.
Okay.
Because I feel like I thought the play was really interesting when I saw it, but I was like, I'm not sure how you would turn this into an entire TV show.
Yes. Okay.
And I feel like the show did answer that question for me, because it's like, I feel like there's certain elements of the plot of the show that kind of have commonality with the plot of the play.
Yeah.
But also it's kind of just like, once we've established this dynamic, here's just different situations that they kind of experience.
Yes.
So that made sense to me.
Yeah.
And I had a good time.
Okay. The first episode, when I watched it again, there's a lot of dialogue that's directly from the play.
Oh, that's cool.
I haven't noticed that in any other episodes, but the pilot is pulling play dialogue quite a bit, which I think is fun. And I like the whole cast. You've got Lindsay Sloan as Emily, who's sort of like, her and her sister kind of take the roles of the Pigeon Sisters a little bit, but not really. You have Yvette Nicole Brown, who is Oscar's assistant and later partner, spoiler alert.
Oh.
And Wendell Pierce as Teddy, who is Oscar's manager. This is the only comedy thing Wendell Pierce did. He was known for like The Wire and the Jack Ryan Show, and he just got cast as Perry White in the new Superman movie that's coming out. But I think it's a strong ensemble cast all around. And later we have Terry Hatcher comes in, Terry Hatcher of Lois and Clark fame.
Okay. I was like, that name sounds really familiar to me.
Comes in as a love interest for Oscar, and it's a more serious kind of thing. And so you see some changes in that character as the show goes on. So 3 seasons, 38 episodes, but I think you do get quite a bit of character development. And I feel like it manages to do more than just be like, he's clean and he's messy. What are we going to do?
For sure.
You know?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the episodes had some more like them like processing more of their like personality differences, or like ways that they're the same but they express it differently, like the episode where Oscar is dating Felix's doctor.
Yes.
And it's like, oh no, they're both hypochondriacs.
Right.
Like Oscar pretends not to be a hypochondriac, but they're both hypochondriacs. They just react very differently to that, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think it just holds up. I don't know why. I guess there's a few reasons. I feel like it does sort of maintain the feel of a play a lot of the times. Like a lot of the staging and even the dialogue and some of the exaggerated circumstances feel very much like they'd be at home on stage. And I like that it kind of remains true to its origin there. I think that's a helpful thing. And it really does manage to stay pretty even-handed. You know, it's not like, oh, Felix is so annoying, you know, and Oscar's just trying to live his life. Like, it really does. You kind of see the pros and cons of both of them throughout the 3 seasons, which I appreciate. So what did you think? What did you think of this show?
I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Enough that, like, you would have watched more if you weren't required to.
Probably, yeah.
Probably.
I probably still will watch more. Just I have
okay.
to find a new way to access it because
That's right.
Paramount Plus let me down.
That's right. In the time since I assigned this to Allie and we recorded this episode, both this show and the Jack Klugman, Tony Randall version got pulled off.
Maybe it was like at the beginning of March that it happened, timeline-wise.
Yeah.
But I watched like, I don't know, like 2/3 or 3/4 or something like that. And then I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to, go and watch another episode today, make sure I'm making good progress. And it was just gone. And I was like searching for it and everything. And I was like, am I spelling it wrong? What's happening?
You can. It is still available for purchase at time of recording on things like Vudu and Apple and Google and stuff. Like, you can still buy it, but it's not streaming anywhere. And the DVDs are like impossible to find. They're very expensive on like eBay and things like that.
Do we have? Are they in the system? Do we know?
We have. No, they're not. This show is not in the system. We have the original series, which I'd recommend, plus the movies we have, and the play. We have the original play. You can check out all of that. But what were some of your takeaways on it? Like, what do you think were standouts of the show?
I like kind of some of what we were talking about with the dynamic of like how the two of them are sort of a foil for each other and more than just the like dirty, clean. And so like you can kind of see some of the like, and like both of them are processing going through divorces at varying stages, and the way that they kind of help each other to process that. I enjoyed throughout. I thought Emily was a really fun character.
She is.
Every time she showed up, I was just like, nice.
Yeah.
This is a good time.
And I think you'd appreciate her character arc over the 3 seasons as well, because she really changes a lot in ways that I think are fun and sort of unexpected. But I mean, the chemistry, I think, is what keeps me coming back. It's the whole cast, too. It's like in any direction, I think it works really well.
Well, because like Danny, the assistant, like her chemistry with Oscar is good. Her chemistry with Felix is good. Yeah. And she's also just hilarious every time she shows up. So that's great.
Yeah,
but
it's a true ensemble show. Like, obviously, Oscar and Felix are the center point, but like, I appreciate a show that works in any direction. It's not the kind of thing where it's like, oh, you can't have these 2 characters alone in a scene. It will never work.
Right.
I don't think there's anybody like that who drops a ball in anything. And I think the chemistry of Thomas Lennon and Matthew Perry is really... I feel like it's underrated. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody talk about this show outside of you and I right now. Because I think that I think that's a really easy well to go to where it's just like, you know, clean, messy, whatever. But there's so many levels. And I think something that's maybe kind of missing from the Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau is that you never really, like, why are these guys friends? You know what I mean? And I don't think they ever really satisfactorily answer that question. But I think you see the friendship really clearly in this series, which I appreciate.
Although I do feel like a question that this series has not totally answered for me, because I'm like, oh, I can see that they're friends and that it works. Like, it's weird, but it works.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how did they become friends in the first place? That's where I'm like, that's a head scratcher. Yeah. I don't know how this happened.
Well, they're college friends.
Right. But like, how in college did these 2 people become friends?
I mean, that's dorm life. I mean, my college friends, seriously, like the people that I was closest to in college were people that I would never be friends with, like, outside of college. Not because there's something wrong with them. That's fair. It's just we wouldn't have had any crossover.
Right. I guess I have a lot of college friends who probably I have a similar dynamic with. But just kind of watching it, I'm like, it makes sense. But I guess I would enjoy seeing a college era Odd Couple to see how that developed. I think that could be fun.
I would totally watch that. You know, something that's funny about the production that we did here forever ago, 2015, something like that, a long time ago. We had been planning, like Valley Theater, the group that I was working with, we had been planning to do the Odd Couple for like years. And it's just hard to get that many male actors. Like,
right, for sure. Oh my goodness.
And so we kept being like, we can't do it. And we waited so long that I went from originally, the plan was for me to play Felix. And then I got to a point where I was like, I think I'm a better Oscar. So that was the trajectory of my life.
That's funny.
Going through there. Do you have series like this that are just your, like, what are you going to put on if you're, say, on a plane to Seattle or something, where you just want to, like, unwind and relax? Like, do you have something like that?
Maybe the show Eureka.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a favorite. And I feel like it's similar in its kind of like lighthearted comfort food-ish nature. There's a lot of other shows that I really like, but that I might or may not be like, I just need to relax. I'm going to throw this on.
Okay.
I mean, I just chronically rewatch Wednesday, so there's that.
That's funny. Sitcoms? Do you have any sitcoms that are like that?
I feel like I've watched a ton of sitcoms.
Interesting.
I've seen some in that I was watching this and I was like, I totally recognize this style. But I was also like, from what? Like, what other sitcoms do I know? And I couldn't answer that question for myself. So
you don't have like a favorite sitcom? You don't have one sitcom that you were...
I don't think so.
Interesting.
I know. I'm also interested by this fact.
I will say one thing that stood out to me about it, I think, because I was watching it, I think, a little bit more analytically this time around. And I feel like the style of it is much more reminiscent of, like, 70s TV. Like, it's very Three's Company-esque in the kind of humor that it goes for, because I feel like it's more naked in its comedy than a lot of contemporary shows were. It's just, it's very funny. Like, it is punchline heavy, but there's a lot of visual sight gags. There's a lot of building comedy in it. And I feel like something about that, while it does feel fresh to me, has its roots in classic TV, which again would appeal to me because
it makes sense.
Makes sense. It is funny to me that you had to finish the show by watching the DVDs that I had on a portable DVD player that I bought in college.
That was really iconic.
It just feels... I bought this DVD player at a Walmart in Warsaw when I was probably a junior in college because it was super cheap. And I was like, oh, I can watch DVDs wherever I want because, it was 2003 and that's just what you do. And I've had it ever since. And it's held up for
that's amazing.
Over 20 years now. And yeah, when the internet failed us, my analog DVD set
right.
and 20-year-old DVD
and
player.
The computer that I
day.
was using even had a disk drive, but I was not able to download
Couldn't do it.
a media player.
Yeah.
And Windows doesn't have one anymore because they don't love us.
Yeah. I'm basically a pioneer. You know
Basically,
what I mean? This is like one step away from churning my own butter. Just watching DVDs on a portable DVD player. So your overall takeaway from this was that you liked it.
Correct.
Okay. Were there things you didn't like? Were there things you were like, that's dumb?
Some of the jokes just felt a little bit basic, I guess. Like some of the more punchline-y ones.
Yes.
But I'm like, well, okay, I'm willing to accept that.
Yeah, it was a little spicier in the first couple episodes than I remembered too. But I do. Yeah, you're right. But I think that's something that I kind of like about it is that sometimes it really is just like, boom, joke, but move on. You know what I mean? And I recognize that can be kind of a weakness there, but it just plays into it somehow has become like a sentimental show for me. I think because it harkens back to like TV of yesteryear and even like just the classic Neil Simon style. I really like, and I think it stays consistent. It stays consistent while allowing the characters to grow. Mm-hmm. I certainly would have watched more seasons, but it was never like a huge hit. And so the fact that it eked out 3 seasons, I think, is incredible.
Yeah, that's really fair.
And I really do feel like it's sort of like a remnant of a bygone like era of TV. And I'm glad that I at least have the first season on DVD. Should the internet take the rest of it away from me?
Right.
Because,
you got to be careful out
you
there.
Just the importance of comfort food entertainment, I just think can't be overstated. You got to have it.
This is true.
And for me, like this just checks the box every time that I need something like that. So I'm glad that you liked it. Did you really like it? Just to clarify, you did.
I did really like it.
Okay. All right.
Well, it was like to the extent that like whatever day it was that I like drove to Corning and like read a book to like 96th graders,
Yeah.
And then I drove back and I was like, cool, I'm exhausted, but technically I haven't worked for 7 hours yet. And I was like, well, I'll just watch The Odd Couple. Perfect.
Yes. Okay. Did you ever find yourself wanting to watch the next episode, or was it that you were under the gun?
No, I definitely found myself wanting to watch the next episode.
All right. Did your husband watch any of this with you?
No, like he vaguely kind of like
Okay.
came through occasionally
All
and
right.
saw what was going on.
Because I didn't watch this show like regularly with my wife. This was one that I watched like by myself, but we did watch a couple episodes together on this rewatch, and she was right there with me, like laughing and having a good time. So I definitely think that it holds up. So I would encourage people to, scour the globe and find a DVD copy or buy it online or something. And if in lieu of that, if you can't, then the Jack Klugman, Tony Randall show is a lot of fun. It's very good. And again, both movies hold up and the script is great. So plenty of Odd Couple to be had out there in the world.
And
I'm happy that you liked it. Yeah, and the Oddball Couple.
You can't forget that.
Yes, yeah. When I rewatched it, I was like, oh, I don't think she's gonna like this.
Oh, really?
I was like, I don't think this is her style. I don't think it's gonna land. So I'm glad that it did. I'm pleasantly surprised that you enjoyed it as much as you did.
I'm not that surprised that I liked like you pitched it and I was like, yeah, I'm probably gonna like that.
Okay.
I feel like that'll work.
Okay. Well, I'm satisfied then.
Good. Mission success.
Woo!
All right, Nick. Well, I know you like The Odd Couple and
Yes.
I know you like comfort TV.
Yeah.
And TV in general.
Yeah.
Have you tried, speaking of shows that are exciting and should have had more seasons, Agent Carter?
Oh, like Marvel Agent
like
Carter.
Marvel Agent Carter.
No, I did not watch that show. I watched, there's like a Peggy Carter short that they did around the Captain America time that I watched and really enjoyed. And seeing that, I was like, maybe I should watch that show.
Oh, for sure.
And then I just never did because it was, 2 seasons?
2 seasons.
Yeah.
And it feels like one that you would have watched because I feel like you've watched a lot of the Marvel stuff.
But I didn't watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as we discussed at that
That's
time
true.
either. And Agent Carter, I intended to watch, but then it like disappeared before I really like.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't even really remember it being on. I know that it existed, but I don't remember it being like, Agent Carter Thursdays at 9. I don't remember that.
That's fair.
So, but I know it's on Disney Plus, and I'm fairly certain that we have the DVDs in the collection.
I feel like we probably do.
Yeah. I like her. I like
Right?
Haley
She's
Atwell
great.
as an actress.
Like-
She was in a mini series of Howard's End based on Ian Forster. If you haven't watched that, you definitely should, because that was really good and she was great in it. And I always like when she shows up and stuff.
Right. And I feel like also if you watch Captain America: The First Avenger and you're like, man, this is great, but it'd be even better with more Peggy Carter, then you
With
should watch
less
Agent
Captain
Carter.
America and more Peggy Carter, then you got it. Okay, I'm down. I'll do it. I can get through at least the first season, and
Okay.
we'll see how I feel.
That sounds
after
good.
that. Does
that
that
sounds
seem
like a good
fair?
plan.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay. So in 2 weeks, we'll get back here to talk a little bit about what we've been reading and watching and knitting and whatever. Do you do any canning?
No, I'm scared of canning. I
Oh.
want to can, but I'm scared.
Scared
canning.
of it.
Well, because like botulism.
Oh, okay. I guess I thought like boiling fruits scared you, but it's botulism.
It's botulism specifically
Huh.
that scares me.
Okay.
Well, it's like if you can it right, you're fine. But if you can it
Can it
badly,
wrong.
then you might be dead.
You got botulism, my friend.
Right? And
Wow.
that's just not something that I like to
Okay.
think about while I'm preparing and
This
eating
is
my
such
food.
an informative podcast. Okay. So then we'll stick to what we're reading and watching and otherwise doing in life. And then after that, it's going to be Agent Carter time.
I'm
Okay.
excited.
Allie, I've got my assignment and I'm up to the task.
Sounds good.
Okay. See you then.
See you then.